what you're saying on your videos is what is in my write-ups.
Whoa. I just want to say this. These are my plays with their information and then me asking 44,000 questions to back my play up because I am still very much so learning. Okay. Maybe that's why you called me like 8 times this summer and I just never returned anybody's call.
All I know is both of you are doing well. All I know is both of you are doing well. That's all I'm saying.
We're picking winners. 3-1 last week. Andy's got 2 PLL plays up on his page on WagerTalk, wt.buzz/AL. At Bump Sports on Twitter, at Andy Ling Bets on Instagram. Andy, I adore you. I cannot wait for Bet On It and all of the prop bets. 69 days until college starts. So I think it's like 11 days after that or something ridiculous. The NFL season starts. We'll be back with Bet On It, though, in early August. Okay, let's bring in Adam Trigger to talk some baseball. I'm going to take a nap while he does that. Because we all know how I feel about baseball, Adam. That's why I'm doing the PLL.
I don't believe you have somewhere you have to be at 12:05, but that's okay. You know, if you have a hard out at noon, here's what we should do, Kelly. Let the chat fire off questions. I'll answer any game. I haven't put one up yet for today, but I'm 15-2 in my last 17 baseball plays, so I'm seeing it well.
Love that.
Fire away. I'll talk about any game on the board. Doesn't matter. Fire away. What do you want to know about? So,
guys, drop your questions in the chat. For Adam Trigger at Top Flight SI over on social media.
We got one though, Guardians Jays. So yep.
John Shellhouse wants to know Guardians Jays. Fire away, guys.
So I don't love Carrasco. That's my only reservation here with the Guardians because the Jays are going to kind of go with, I guess you could call it a bullpen game. They'll see how far Richards can go, but it's probably going to be Richards, Francis. The one thing they do have going for them here is Jimmy Garcia hasn't pitched in a couple of days, and he's the one Blue Jays reliever. If you watch First Pitch and some of the shows we did earlier in the week, I asked myself 2 things when it's dealing with the Blue Jays. Who's the starting pitcher? Because their starting pitching has been excellent across the board. And how used up is Garcia? Because he's their one stud reliever. Once you get past him, the bullpen is as bad as it gets. I have them rated, I think, last, right? They're probably a bottom 3, bottom 4 bullpen for me in the league. Whereas the Guardians, their bullpen is fantastic. They do everything right. They do all the little things right. Now, I don't love Carrasco. That's the only thing kind of putting me off here. But I think if he's a veteran, he can survive. If he can survive 5 innings, keep them in this game, I think you have an advantage with the Guardians. So maybe plus money there for Cleveland. Not something I played, but lean Cleveland for me.
So I'm texting Aunt Joyce, letting her know that I'm going to be late for our lunch date on the beach. That's okay. It's getting rained out anyway. So we're going to sit here and talk baseball with Trig. The longer you guys drop questions in the chat, I guess the longer I'm going to be here. Any thoughts on Brewers, Reds, Tigers, Astros? Let's hit both of those games because Rich wants to know, Trig. And also, why don't you have a play up yet? It is noon.
Yeah, no, I'll answer that question first. So for me, I'll go at baseball 2 ways, and it's worked for me. It's, probably a big reason I'm on the run I'm on right now. I'll either put something up very early because I've got something that I've circled that I've had isolated for a couple days that comes up in the, we know when the guy is going to pitch next, right? So guy pitches on Sunday. We know they're pitching probably today, and I'll know if I want to go at that. If none of that happens, I typically like to see lineups or get an idea of what the lineup might be for that day. So I either have stuff up very early, like first thing in the morning, occasionally overnight, or I'll go a little bit later to start trying to get the lineup information before the lineup actually gets posted, because you can, get yourself a little bit of an edge that way. I'll talk about these 2. I will give you what I'm looking at, though. I'm probably going to play something today, but that's the reason nothing's up right now. But okay. We'll talk about Reds, Brewers real quick.
Listen, this is the trust tree on last call. That Andy has to admit, oh wait, I screwed up. I was 3rd on the show, so I had to change my best bet for the show. Trig's just saying, hey, look, there's a lot of information you want to absorb here, and I am a firm believer. I know that inherently there is a negativity assigned with selling picks, but I like to think we do things differently here at WagerTalk. We do not force plays. We do not just have things
Listen,
up for sale just to
I'm
have them up.
15-2. I'm 15-2 in my last 17. If I wanted to sell something, I could sell it right now, no problem. But I'm more focused on here, Kel, I want to throw something out there. For me, I don't know if you feel the same way. For me, when I'm running good as I am right now, it's way easier to pass. I don't know if that's the same way for everyone, but when I'm really locked in, I can throw stuff out easier. I can throw stuff out easier. I can throw stuff out easier than when I'm not seeing it as well. That's just like me. So when I'm like real locked in, I'm like, you know what? I'll give you an example. Like the Mets was a side, and I'll get to Brewers Reds in a second, but the Mets was a side I really looked at today. Reason being, Adam Mazur is going to pitch for the Padres. He's someone that I felt like they kind of rushed to the big leagues. He was in Double-A toward the end of last year, was having a really good run at Double-A, moved up to Triple-A, which is the natural progression of. He was a second round pick in 2022, so he's pretty young, pretty ahead of schedule. They bring him up to El Paso. He struggles. 7.44 ERA. Guys hitting almost 3. I think 280 was his batting average against, and they had no choice. Like Yu Darvish goes down, IL, Joe Musgrove, IL, and suddenly this guy's in the big leagues, despite the fact that he was struggling at El Paso. So kind of up by necessity. I mean, he's got very good stuff. I think he's got a high upside, but I'm just not sure that he's a guy that like really belongs at the big league level right now. So, as far as the Mets are concerned, the only reason I'm not on the Mets today is I'm not a huge Jose Quintana guy at this point. I mean, he's a veteran. Like, he'll give you a decent start on occasion. He had a pretty good start against the Guardians, good start against the Dodgers recently. 5.29 ERA, 1.43 WHIP. I feel like that's just what he is at this point in his career. He's going to go out there, eat up innings. There's going to be times where he gets hit hard, but he's the type of veteran that you live with in the rotation. So he's really the only reason that I didn't come out and take a shot on the Mets here, because all the other stuff kind of adds up. The Padres are a little bit worse against left-handed pitching. Quintana's a lefty. Tatis only hitting like 220 against left-handed pitching this year. And, but like you were saying, Kelly, like I kind of threw that out because I'm like, I haven't liked Quintana all year. He's not someone I really want to back. So why do I have to force it, right? Like, it didn't check all the boxes. It checked most of them. I still lean toward the Mets for those reasons, but, I can play tomorrow if I want to, not today. So it's like, that's kind of the reasoning there.
All right, let's hit a couple of these games from the chat. Shout out to our graphics team for making just every single graphic possible, just in case Trey wants to talk about that game. All jokes aside, Phillies, Orioles. Let's see what Boss 49 wants to know.
So I probably would have played Phillies plus 1.5 if it was a little bit cheaper. It's teetering right on the edge of where I would want to jump in with that. So Phillies plus 1.5 is minus 135. I also think there's value on the Phillies on the money line plus 160, just from the respect that, I understand why the market has it priced like this. I've been playing against Taijuan Walker most of the year. So again, there's your reason that it didn't make my card. But you look at these two teams, for me, Grayson Rodriguez, like, he has huge upside, but he still hasn't been like totally lights out. If you can get through the starters here and like you get to the later innings of this game, which these two went into extra innings last night, played a game that probably got done at midnight. So another thing, definitely would want to see lineups here, because you could have guys, out of the lineup for both teams for that reason. But I was shocked to see the Phillies at that kind of plus price. If you get through the starters and this game is tied or a 1-run game late in the game, the Orioles bullpen is something I've been willing to play against all season. That's the main weakness of this Orioles team. So I think the plus 1.5 is actually the better bet, and there's more value there, because if you do get to the late innings and you're trailing by 1, let's say you are trailing by 1, you go into the 9th inning and the Orioles get out of it, game's over. They don't get to bat in the bottom of the 9th. But again, it's a pretty big plus price there for them to just be hanging out on the Phillies. I think there's value on that, but the way I would play it is to take the 1.5, lay the minus 130 or minus 135, because you get that extra at bat, and it should be another close game. Seems like a pretty evenly matched game. Extra innings last night, could see another close one today.
All right, guys, it is noon. I'm going to give you guys 10 more minutes of my time, only because it's still raining. Brewers, Reds. Let's circle back to this one for Anthony.
Yeah, so the Brewers have been surprisingly good when they go with the opener, and it looks like that's what they're going to do here. It's Jared Koenig. He is a reliever, which means he's probably going to go 1 inning, sometimes not even, and they'll piggyback him with Bryce Wilson, who's been kind of awesome, like in the starter role. That was something I didn't really see happening. So earlier, like maybe like a month ago, Kelly, I was sort of all about playing against Wilson, all about playing against Colin Rhea, like some of these other guys that that the Brewers kind of just thrust into their rotation out of necessity. But I'll tell you what, they've done well, especially, they've done well when they piggyback them after the opener. And it looks like that's what they're going to do here. So the screen has Wilson listed as the starter. I'm pretty sure it's Koenig, but all that means is they're just going to use Koenig for the first inning. They probably saw the Reds lineup and liked how he matched up against the top 3 or 4 hitters. So they'll use him for an inning, and then they'll let Wilson come in. And that's been favorable for the Brewers. I am kicking myself because I feel like I missed the opportunity to play Reds yesterday. But I'm kind of done fading the Brewers when they do this opener type deal. So nothing here for me, but I will point out that the Brewers have had a lot of success using Koenig at the top and then going with like Wilson for bulk innings and then using their relievers. They lose a close one last night, so maybe they get it here. I haven't even seen a new money line posted, but I think it'll probably be roughly the same. So I guess Brewers as a slight favorite is a slight lean, but not something that's going to get my money.
All right. Let's go to the we'll call it the marquee game. Titan CT, he said earlier, you're always mean to Adam. Now he's saying lost with the Red Sox as my dog yesterday. Any thoughts for tonight? They take on the New York Yankees. This is one of the most storied rivalries in MLB. I had Kevin Millar on the show on Outkick the other day. He had some really funny stories. Adam, we know our good friend Errol Epstein, big Yankees fan. Give me the winner of this game.
Now, I find it hard to believe the Yankees are just going to stroll into Fenway on the sort of the scheduling run that they're on. Like, it hasn't really been easy for them. They had a really big marquee series last weekend with the Dodgers. They then had to go out to Kansas City, which this year is a different ballgame, Kelly. Kansas City is good. In my opinion, they're one of the better teams in the American League this year. And that was, I know there was a couple blowouts in that series, but certainly not an easy series. And it was 4 days. So no off day on Thursday. They had to play a getaway day game on Thursday, which ended up, going into the 9th inning. I think that the Royals finally won one on a walk-off. So I don't think that the Yankees are just going to roll through the Red Sox all weekend long, right? They win 8-1 last night. So now you've got 2 more games in the series. I strongly consider the Red Sox plus the 1.5 here. It's only minus 105. You kind of get that little discount when you play the home team plus 1.5. Criswell has been good enough, in my opinion, to feel like, I know the Yankees lineup is just insane and it's difficult to bet against them, but Criswell's done enough to at least make me comfortable that he can keep the Red Sox in the game. And then as good as Carlos Rodon has been, I mean, he's been so hot at this point that you would have to think somewhere along the line for him, there's a blow up. There almost always is. If you go back and look at his career, he's had just fire runs like this in the past, and then he'll just have like the outlier start where he gets slammed for like 7 runs. Most recently, it happened May 2nd at Baltimore, where he just got blown up for like 7 runs in 4 innings. And he hasn't had to start like that since. So again, that's not the greatest handicap. I haven't bet it yet, but my gut is telling me that Red Sox are going to get one of these next 2, and that maybe tonight is the best spot for that to happen. So maybe the plus 1.5, give yourself the run cushion. I could see it being a far closer game than last night, where the Yankees just kind of boat raced them 8-1. So Red Sox plus 1.5 for me in this one.
I'm taking 2 more questions. Here's one of them. Hugo Renard Kenneth wants to know about the Pirates versus Athletics. If you guys have A question for Trig. Drop it in the chat, and I'm going to pick one more. Colorado Rockies plus 1.5. My baseball team that has been absolute garbage. Trig, how come the two baseball teams I've rooted for in my life are absolute garbage? The Colorado Rockies and the Chicago White Sox. Like, what did I do to deserve this? No wonder I hate baseball.
That is, yeah, they really are. I mean, you quite possibly
they really are.
you may have just identified the two worst teams in baseball this year. I mean, it doesn't get much worse, right? Like, they are probably their worst teams in the respective leagues. So I think the viewer that asked the question probably meant Pirates Rockies, not Pirates A's. But I have a pretty big opinion here, and I actually really like this spot for the Rockies. This is one that is, if I play today in Major League Baseball, it very well may be this. So right now, I've watched every game of this series. So this is the second game of a 3-game set out in Denver. These two teams played in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. And surprisingly, every game has been very low scoring, which is not something you typically get with the Rockies, especially not at Coors, but also because their bullpen is far and away the worst in the National League. Their starters aren't very good. They give up a lot of runs. So the fact that like all these games have been low scoring tells me, maybe the Padres, for whatever reason, just don't hit Rockies pitching particularly well. And that also doesn't surprise me because the Pirates are, I meant to say the Pirates. The Pirates are not a great team. And they, because of the Paul Skeens, he's up and he's a generational talent. They've gotten more attention. The Pirates are getting treated like a good team right now. I don't think that this is a 500 baseball team this year. So even with the Pirates' recent surge, Kelly, they're 33-36. And I think that's about their ceiling. If you go back to the beginning of the year, this was a team that was like 16, 17-1 to win their division. I think they were 16-1 at one point to win the NL Central. Now I'm on WagerTalk listening to some other guys talk, and we're talking about the Pirates making the playoffs, which I just think is insane. But that's the way a lot of the market is looking at this team. Skeens, stud. Jones, who we'll talk about in a second, he's pitching today. He's another really good pitcher. But in my opinion, they're still at least a year away. So that's not breaking news. It's almost every year that they're horrible on the road, but they play well in the altitude because they're used to it, right? 8-6 in their last 14 home games this year. They're 13-18 at Coors Field, which doesn't sound great, but when you consider their overall record, 13-18 at Coors, 11-27 on the road, right? That's a pretty big difference. So clearly, the splits favor the Rockies when they play at Coors Field. Now, Jared Jones is the starter here. He's awesome. Like, he's another reason the Pirates probably have a bright future and that people are high on the Pirates. He completely eviscerated this Rockies lineup back in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. 7 innings of 1-hit ball, 7 shutout innings, 1 hit, 10 strikeouts. He's got a 3.27 ERA and a 1.06 whip. But Kelly, this is his first start in Denver. And historically, a guy's first start at altitude tends to be a pretty good fade. I know Tokyo Brandon loves his pitcher out props. I'll tell you what, I doubt Jones is going 7 shutout today. I doubt, he's probably not making it to the 7th inning today. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 5-inning start for him. And that's an issue for the Pirates because yesterday they kind of had to go bullpen game. Like Luis Ortiz gave him bulk innings, 5 innings, but they used Holderman, Aroldis Chapman, I think threw 25 pitches. So you have to wonder, if he's even available here. I know they don't love throwing him on back-to-back days, especially after a long outing like that. David Bednar came in for the save. Again, another tight game. It was a 5-2 final, another pretty, competitive game. So that leads me to believe that this could be the game the Rockies win. So far this series, the plus 1.5 is 2-2. So the Rockies are 1-3. But one of those games was a 1-0 loss where they covered the plus 1.5. And it's been like minus 105 competitive, priced every single time. So I think this is probably a close game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Rockies steal one here. So plus 1.5 with the Rockies is probably the strongest thing I see on the baseball board today. Was hoping to catch a lineup before I locked it in. But yeah, Ty Block is a guy that he's starting for the Rockies. He seems to be one of those guys that's good at in altitude. The Rockies always seem to find one that probably wouldn't be on many big league rosters, but they tend to be okay at altitude and they keep him around. And that's sort of what Block's been for them. So it all looks like everything's sort of pointing to the Rockies here for me. I just got to decide if it'll make my client card or not. But Rockies plus 1.5 seems like a pretty strong bet.
Good news. During that breakdown, Jimmy Burke 13, I found my aunt a new house on Zillow. So it was a great success. We finally got to the answer of Rockies plus 1.5, and Aunt Joyce is getting a new condo down on Siesta Key. Trig, I had 2 more questions I was going to take, but.
Well, you found the game that I had like the strongest opinion on. So that's the chat's fault.
Here's what's going to happen. We've got 3 questions we need to answer, and I need rapid fire, no breakdown.
Okay.
Nationals, Marlins. Who's winning?
Over.
Over.
I would fade the pitchers in that game.
Dodgers,
Next.
Twins. In a parlay, yes or no? Are they both
Dodgers, Twins. The Twins crush bad teams, so I would probably.
No?
I wouldn't make that parlay.
Too chalky.
I'll
Rangers.
I'll say too
Mariners.
chalky. No to that parlay.
Rangers, Mariners. Who wins?
Slight lean Mariners.
Okay. Guys, he is Adam Trigger, Top Flight SI. I am Kelly Stewart. This has been WagerTalk's Last Call. You guys can go get Trig's baseball plays, WT.buzz /AT. He has been on absolute fire over the last couple of weeks. I think it was 31, 16, and 2, and then 15 and 2 over his last 17. So glad Trig is killing it on the diamond. Shout out to Ronald Cabang, Andy Lang, Carmine Bianco, Adam Trigger, our 2 producers, Joe Ranieri, Dan Newbert, for hanging out with us here today on WagerTalk's Last Call. Back here next Saturday, and probably each and every Saturday for the foreseeable future, except while I'm in Italy with Ariel Epstein. We love you guys. Appreciate you always hanging out, making the show so interactive in the chat box. And hopefully we found you guys some winners on this beautiful Saturday morning. Good luck on all of your bets, and we'll see you next week.